And welcome to the Wednesday edition of Redefining with Richard Greene. We have to start with the officer in Minneapolis suburbs, Brooklyn Park, who was just charged with second-degree manslaughter, as I predicted in our show yesterday, with a DA and a defense attorney. Casey Evans, our producer, is actually her neighbor, believe it or not, just down the street, but she has fled. So don't go bothering Casey because she's not there. Casey, tell us what's going on. Live report from Brooklyn Park, Minneapolis.
Yeah, hey, Richard. I live probably about 2 blocks away from her. What's interesting is she lives across the street of where I sent my kids for daycare for years. Nice house, right on a little pond. I think I probably walked by her house dozens of times going for walks and stuff. It's a small enough community where we're probably about 15, 20 minutes away from Brooklyn Center and Minneapolis. But yesterday we started getting alerts on our phones saying to keep a lookout or be mindful of protest activity. The same alert you would get if there was a missing child, it just popped up on your phone and it started to buzz. Yesterday morning, they started blocking off some of the streets that went into our neighborhood. They put up no parking signs everywhere. And then they started blocking off a lot of ways to get in and out of the neighborhood. At about 12 o'clock yesterday, everybody in our little area got a heads up from our school that we had to pick up our kids as soon as possible because they weren't allowing buses to even enter into our neighborhood. We talked to a few folks that know her and the husband, and we did hear that she did leave pretty quick after everything went down. And then they did confirm it on the news from the Champlain City chief of police. Last night we were on heightened alert a little bit. We obviously stayed home. All activities in the area were canceled, but things are relatively low key in Champlain last night.
Got it. What is the feeling there amongst you and your neighbors? Do you believe that she is guilty of some criminal offense? Because she was just charged, and we're going to talk about it. I'm going to read the definition of second-degree manslaughter. Do you believe she is guilty of a criminal offense, or, oh my goodness, it was an accident in the heat of the moment, let her go? And also, she's a woman. Why are we charging a woman? And all these white guys don't get charged, but we have a woman, and instantly she's being charged.
It's a loaded question, man. I can tell you honestly what I thought when I first heard about it, and I still think the same way right now, especially after looking at the video footage. I think it was an accident, but it doesn't mean that the accident is somewhat innocent. Me and you were talking a little bit yesterday about Malcolm Gladwell and some of the books that he's written, and for whatever reason, I think with everything that's going on just in society right now, everything that's going on with the police, and I think even the Black community, I think when they pulled that kid over, I think within a second or two, she perhaps had an idea in her head, and maybe things start to go in hyperdrive. And maybe the cops get just as anxious sometimes as the people that they're pulling over. I can't put my head there, but I think it was a terrible accident. But I think she probably had an idea of her head of how this would go down. I don't know. I don't know if she would feel differently or approach it differently if it was a white kid in the car. I don't think it helps, though, my raw feeling when you resist arrest and you try to run away. I don't think that helps at all.
Right. I mean, and we talked about this a lot yesterday with my brother, who's a DA, and a criminal defense lawyer friend who's based in Texas. When cops are in emotionally charged situations, it's their belief and mine. So there are 3 lawyers talking, despite the absolute existence and reality of systemic racism and unconscious racial bias and all of that, right? You just take that as a given. But regardless of that, even if you're white, regardless, when people are police officers and they have the mindset that at any minute they could be shot by someone that they've never met in their life. And they may not be going home to their spouse or families. When someone goes back into the car, you have no idea whether that person is going back in the car to get a gun or to escape or whatever, which is why, as I mentioned yesterday, it would be so lovely if we could redefine and reform our relationship to the cops. Now, people of color are going to say, who the hell are you talking about? You know, you are a privileged white person of color. You've never had to worry about being killed because your license tags were expired or for driving while white. That's not a thing, right? So I've not had, and I understand that, but the whole point is when you have officers, and by the way, the officer who cuffed Dante Wright, who cuffed him, was a Black gentleman. I don't know if you remember seeing that. He was the guy, the Black guy was the guy who was interacting with Dante Wright. And in his judgment, Dante Wright needed to be cuffed, right? We're going to find out a lot more about the background on that and why Kim Potter was coming in, why she was grabbing his arm, why she then felt it necessary to tase him. This will all come out, I promise you. And I'm going to read the definition of voluntary manslaughter in your state of Minnesota. But the key point, I think, from yesterday in our discussion from my brother, who is a DA, who has seen so many of these cases, Black, Hispanic, white, and our friend Kobe, who is a defense attorney, is that when cops have their adrenaline running and they have some degree of uncertainty about what's going to happen. For example, just again, it is unlikely that Dante Wright was going to grab a gun in his car, but we don't know. The cops didn't know, and we can sit here, me 1,500, 2,000 miles away and be judgmental, but when you're right there, and if he did have a gun, you could be dead, that's a different story. So cops make decisions based upon the adrenaline, the fear, the fact that they all know cops who have been blown away, right? And those things are factoring in the back of their mind. And so I just want to redefine the relationship that everyone has with cops, and just to, as a default that is reinforced. It's not fair, perhaps, but to be reinforced, which is these guys who are police officers and women, if we can be honest, may not be the smartest people that were in your high school class. They may not be the smartest people who were in your college classes, right? They may not have even really gone to college. I don't know what the requirements are. They did not choose to be a police officer because their other option was a rocket scientist or a doctor or a lawyer or a professor or an accountant. They chose to be a police officer probably because they loved being in a position of some authority, some power, and that they couldn't have, and some esteem. I mean, wow, you know, I'm a nobody. I have no self-esteem. I'm not very secure in who I am as a human being, but now with that badge and with that gun, I am somebody. And, you know, I have a psychology background, and I can promise you that that is a key motivation for many, not all, but many. So when you're dealing with people who are not, shall we say, the cream of the crop, not tremendously sophisticated, probably not heavily educated in nonviolent conflict resolution or nonviolent communication, don't have a huge EQ, a level of emotional intelligence, may be a bit more macho, whether they're men or women, than the average person. Why in the world would you mess with that? You know, why would you mess with that? And anyway, so I'm going to read, Casey, I think you're interesting. This might be interesting for you. Here is the definition. So the bottom line of that is whether you're white, Hispanic, Black, white, male, female, young, old, just as Chris Rock says in his really hilarious video, just shut the F up. Just suck it up. Develop your Zen, your emotional maturity as much as you can. If they are cuffing you, you're going to get in the car and you're going to go get booked, right? It's just going to happen, except in the rare case where there's some sort of mistake, some sort of misunderstanding. It's happened to me. I talked about this yesterday, where they realize they have the wrong person or they made a mistake, and then they'll uncuff you, right? But you're running away. You're trying to beat the crap out of them. You're pulling a weapon. You're trying to get back in your car. You're flailing about. You're yelling at them. You're refusing to get in the car. All of those things, whether you're black, white, Hispanic, male, female, whatever, is only going to trigger, and my point before, trigger the lack of emotional intelligence, the lack of Zen, shall we say, that cops generally have because of the profession they've chosen, and who they generally are, because that's why they chose to be cops. Now, if we had a police force that was populated only by Tibetan monks, I would suggest differently. And maybe we should. Maybe we should actually choose police officers who are so Zen, who are so emotionally evolved, who have such ability to be nonviolent in all circumstances, who don't buy into fear, who don't live in a world where they even recognize fear because of their spiritual worldview. Then do whatever you want, because it's going to be balanced by the people who have done decades of work on controlling their emotions. But that's not the case right now with police who have tasers, who have mace, who've got actual guns, as we noticed. Here is the definition. Here's the definition of Minnesota Code 609205, manslaughter in the second degree. Okay? A person who causes the death of another by any of the following means is guilty of manslaughter in the second degree. By the way, this is the statute that George Floyd's killer, and I think he's guilty of first degree murder, Derek Chauvin, is probably going to be convicted on. We were talking about this yesterday. He is charged with second degree murder. That's going to be tough. Third degree murder, that's going to be a bit easier. And I think a slam dunk, to the extent that there ever is a slam dunk in the world of criminal trials, where you have to get all 12 out of 12 jurors, and the defense only needs to peel away how many? Casey, how many does the defense need to peel away out of 12? In order for there to be, right? In order for there to be a hung jury, the defense in any criminal case only needs to peel away one. You must have a unanimous jury who have decided in their own subjective decision-making that the accused is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That is an incredibly high burden of proof, and you only need 1 out of 12, right? So, but still, having said that, I believe that Derek Chauvin will be found guilty of this Minnesota manslaughter in the second degree statute. I believe, and I said something earlier on Facebook, that I thought Kim Potter, the police officer, would likely be convicted. And I've rethought that. I'll admit when I'm wrong. Somebody said that they didn't think so on the Hamilton Electors feed, and I thought about it, and I think that he's right. I think that Kim Potter is being charged because that is the politically expedient thing to do to satisfy the people in the streets, and because there is a reasonable basis to do so. But nonetheless, I do not believe that you're going to get 12 jurors, if this goes to trial, who will convict Kim Potter of second-degree manslaughter in Minnesota. There will be, I believe, all 12 who will convict Derek Chauvin, right? So here's the statute. You curious to hear what the statute says now? Casey?
Let's hear it.
I guess not. Okay. Okay, here we go. A person who causes the death of another by any of the following means is guilty of manslaughter in the second degree and may be sentenced to imprisonment for not more than 10 years or to payment of a fine of not more than $20,000 or both. You think Derek Chauvin would take a $20,000 fine right now? You bet. But I think he's going to get the full 10 years. That's my prediction for Derek Chauvin, but not for Kim Potter. Here's why. Okay, number one, by the person's culpable negligence. So was Kim Potter culpably negligent? You bet your you know what she was. That was negligence, right? That was negligence. You are a trained professional police officer for 26 years and you reach for a gun instead of a taser. That's complete negligence. Okay, so far so good. She's going down maybe 10 years, right? But then it says whereby the person, right, Kim Potter or Derek Chauvin, creates an unreasonable risk, right? Now, your negligence of reaching for a gun instead of a taser, does that create an unreasonable risk? You bet, right? Right? But here's the part where Derek Chauvin is guilty of second-degree manslaughter and Kim Potter probably isn't. And I'll tell you why she won't be, right? Because here it is, it says, so creates an unreasonable risk and consciously takes chances of causing death or great bodily harm to another. Okay, I'm going to read that again, okay? So by the person's culpable negligence, whereby the person creates an unreasonable risk, so far so good, and consciously takes chances of causing death or great bodily harm to another. So this is what law school was like for 3 years. You would go to class and you would look at a statute like this and you would look at one sentence, which is key, right? And you would spend the whole hour diagnosing, dissecting, analyzing that one sentence in that one statute. And then you would read 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 different cases, sometimes even going up to the Supreme Court, analyzing 1 or 2 of the words. So analyzing the word unreasonable, you know, what is unreasonable risk? Analyzing the word consciously takes chances. Well, what does that mean, right? That's what law, so that's the essence of 3 years of law school I just described in 30 seconds, right? So that's my training. And I am telling you, based on that training, that Derek Chauvin 100% did this. Kim Parker, probably not. Let me read it one more time. So by the person's culpable negligence, whereby the person creates an unreasonable risk, yes, for Derek Chauvin, yes, for Kim Potter, but then, and consciously takes chances of causing death. Did Derek Chauvin consciously take chances of causing death? I think 100%. I mean, he consciously knew during those 9 minutes and 29 seconds that he could in fact be causing the death or great bodily harm to George Floyd. Did Kim Potter consciously, here's the words again, consciously take chances of causing death or great bodily harm to another? I think not. What do you think, Casey?
Yeah, I agree with you, Richard. I still can't get out of my head how she could mix the taser and the gun up. But then again, I mean, you covered. I think you have so much stuff going through your head, and you think even someone who's been a veteran for 20 plus years would maybe behave a little bit differently in that situation. Sure as heck, she's one of what, 4 or 5 cops that were there at that stop. I'm not exactly sure. It's not like she's one-on-one with that kid or Dante. It's so loaded. It's so charged. I think we need to start thinking that these cops aren't just this entity and they're evil and they're hard and there's not anything beneath the surface. I mean, they're human just like the people that they're bringing in too. And I think there's mental health things, and I think there's a lot of things going on that even, you know, brings their anxiety up to a different level over the last year or so. And I say this stuff knowing it's not right what happened and everything else, but I think it's hard to dissect this thing into black and white. The question I have for you, which I'm curious about,
so to speak, right?
Yeah, I mean, the question I have for you is, what do you think of the steps of everything that's happened the last 2 days for her? I mean, she wrote the resignation letter. It was 2 sentences. Um, I mean, I'm assuming she's probably getting a little bit of counsel right now, right? In regards to how she wrote that resignation letter. I mean, it was only 2 sentences long, but that has to be by design, I suppose.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about this. First of all, I think that had this woman who seemed to be really apologetic, it's like, oh shit, oh my God, what did I do? As opposed to, okay, asshole, you get what you deserved, right? I mean, and that's why I don't think she's going to be convicted. I'm predicting that if this goes to trial and is not pled out, that Kim Potter will take the stand, will get on the stand, will cry, will apologize, will be completely contrite, say, I am so, so sorry. I haven't slept for 3 months, blah, blah, all of that. And I think the jury is going to say, wow, that was a mistake. Therefore, the conscious desire to do harm will be obliterated just with her testimony alone. So I think that's the case. But here's a bigger issue, and that is, these body cams come out, or these spectator videos come out, and we didn't know for a long time, Casey. We didn't know for a long, long time. Most people didn't know that George Floyd resisted arrest. Now, that's a conclusion that I am coming to, and others as well. But when a policeman tells you to get in the car and you are handcuffed, and you do not get in the car even though you are handcuffed, I'm sorry, that's resisting arrest. That is disobeying the orders of the policeman, right? We did not know that. And if all you see is George Floyd sitting calmly, right, being very gentlemanlike as he was, and very charming with the police in his conversations, right? And we don't see the resistance of the arrest, which is what aggravated and accelerated this whole thing to the point where he was, being put down on the ground and having Derek Chauvin put his knee on it, right? That's why I think the police unions and the police chiefs and the police from across the country are the stupidest frickin' PR people in the world. You are stupid. Get the story out. Why would you let a one-sided perspective that is very misleading and dangerous to you fester for days and days and days, and even have thousands of people protesting against you, when, if you could show the other side of the story, that would calm the situation down, and people go, wow, okay, the police are still culpable, they're still racist, they still did horrible things, but they were provoked to some degree. Do you understand? I mean, again, I talked to my brother about it. He doesn't understand it. Tell the whole story. Don't wait 5 days for a full investigation when you've got hardware stores and CVS's being broken into because people are unnecessarily overinflamed beyond what they would have been had they known the full true story, and had the cops gotten a PR company and said, here's the full story. We're still going ahead with further investigation, but we want you to know the full story before you head to the streets and start beating up policemen and looting stores. Can you explain it?
What's weird, what's sad about that too is, if you look at some of the footage of the looting and the rioting late last night and 2 nights ago, I'd be willing to bet that most of those people don't even live in the Brooklyn Center area. So you're looking at where that police precinct is in Brooklyn Center, and surrounding that is a ton of apartment buildings. So you have families, young families, community members, and you have people lighting fires in the middle of the street. I see people of all walks of life. I can promise you the majority of them aren't from Brooklyn Center. So you're only hurting the people that live in that community. And then on the flip side, I think I heard something on the news last night that not one of the police officers that serve the Brooklyn Center police force, not one of them live in the community too. So it's like you have all these things in play. and you have these people whose livelihoods are at stake that had nothing really to do with it. I mean, I saw last night this fire getting started, and I'm thinking, aren't they going to put this thing out? Because you know darn well, once the flames start getting going, people are going to start throwing things, and they're probably like 50 feet away from these apartment buildings that have kids, and you can see in the background kids looking out their windows and stuff. It's just sad. And you know, all these stores and everything in there too are looted in their community. And everyone who's causing it, in my opinion, are officers who are not part of the community and people who are coming in there just to add more flames to it.
Got it. Okay, so let's take a break and let's come back. I want to get some comments, what you guys think, and we'll be back. We'll stay live here on Hamilton Electors on Political Voices Network. We're taking a 2-minute break, and we're going to come back, continue the conversation about Kim Potter and Dante Wright. I want to talk a little bit about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and Casey, I want to get your experience with it as well, because you had a very interesting way to hedge your bet against the problems with the vaccines. Want you to share that. I think there might be some families out there that might be inspired by what you say. We'll be right back.
We need to get you like one of those big plastic bubbles to walk around in.
Yes.
Big, like inflatable suits. Like even one of those like sumo wrestler suits that they have at Renaissance fairs and things like that.
Yeah.
One of those.
That's to protect her and us.
To protect you, yeah.
Speaking
to prevent
of
you from hurting yourself.
Speaking of outfits,
And never
Bob
never,
Seska.
Stephanie, take the.
Bob Seska posted a picture of him with a tiny Batmobile on Instagram, and he had a little 8-year-old boy smile on his face. He was so excited. It just said, "If only it was bigger. If only it was bigger." I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna hit myself in the head with a giant cartoon mallet. That is too cute. You are officially
Bob.
too cute.
Oh my God! Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well,
You're such a nerd.
I am so desperate to get vaccinated, so I have more Instagram material. That's
Yes.
the whole
Are you-
motivation right now.
Are you getting what? I don't know where. Are you in? Wait, Virginia
Virginia.
or
Virginia.
no DC?
Well, no, Maryland.
Oh,
Maryland.
Like a DC, Maryland Metroplex. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are
The
you?
DMV.
Are you getting
Yeah.
your? Get my little
What?
Get my little Batman the shot. Get him the shot. Are you in line? What's happening?
Yeah, well, I'm desperately looking for one. Both Kimberly and I are pre-registered for the mass vaccination sites, which
Okay.
now, as of yesterday, are now open to everybody, or 16 plus. 16
Probably-
plus in Maryland can go to the mass vaccination sites. So
Probably
we're
not.
registered. We're just waiting. I'm standing by.
Probably
waiting for
not
the
you
text
two.
message.
You two will show up. They'll be like, no, you are genetically engineered super soldiers of some kind, and you can go to the
That's
back of the
right.
line.
Also,
Mhm.
check the CVS and Walgreens websites. Those are not connected to like the mass vaccination, the state sites. So
Yeah.
check those too, because you're eligible for those sites as well.
And those go
Oh,
really
yeah, well,
smooth.
no, actually, I don't think so. Here in Maryland, that's not. You can't go to the pharmacies yet until Monday. Monday.
Oh,
the 12th.
really? Okay.
That's when
Yeah.
that opens
Okay.
for
I mean,
16 plus in the pharmacies. And I discovered that the other day on Monday when I went down to the pharmacy behind my apartment and went up casually. I told this story on my show yesterday. Went up casually to the pharmacist desk there, and I, was wearing a mask and everything. And the pharmacist looks at me and I said, "Hey, got any extra? Got any extra?" I'm doing Sling Blade. Like, do you have any?
all right.
Yeah.
If you don't have any vaccine, I'm gonna cut your head off with a sling blade.
I don't know why.
All right.
I
Yeah,
don't know
need
why.
biscuits and mustard.
Do something. Okay, we're back. No one is justified to do anything that is illegal, right? So if I am if right. Well, actually, that's not true. I'm going to take that back. David, let me ask you a question. If you want to come on one day, let's talk about this. So again, we're saying David Rosnow is saying something that I hear so much. Since when is having expired tags a capital offense? Since when is whatever? And again, we just have to be thoughtful and intelligent. And I know we're smarter than this, right? So David, let's go to an extreme. Is someone reaching for a gun, right, who is being apprehended? So let's say that Dante Wright was in the car, the police came up, and Kim Potter came up to the window, and Dante Wright took out what looked like a gun, even though it was a plastic gun, and aimed it at the officer. Would that be a justification for Kim Potter taking a Glock, a real gun, not a taser, and shooting Dante Wright? Casey, what do you think?
God, that's tough, man. It's tough, Richard. I think these cops are provoked a lot.
Let me give you another example. So there it is. The officer walks up to the window, and Dante Wright takes out a gun, right? A real gun. Okay, let's make sure let's have as an example, because I'm trying to respond to David. Takes out an AR-15, just happens to have it in the passenger seat, and takes out the AR-15. And as the officer approaches, he or she sees the Dante Wright with the AR-15 pointed at him. Would that officer be justified, David Rosnow, in shooting?
Yes.
Yes. So that would be a justified overreaction, perhaps, because maybe there were no bullets in the AR-15, but the officer would not know that. Maybe it's a toy gun, right? But in the heat of the moment, it sure as hell looked like a real gun, right? My brother, as a DA, I'm certain, has tried many cases like that, right? Where someone responded based on the reasonable interpretation of danger, self-defense, even though it later turned out not, right? So if in fact we don't allow police officers to protect themselves, even though there may be some times where they do things that are in retrospect were not necessary, right? They overreacted because they didn't know. I mean, split second decision. I mean, Tom Brady, the best quarterback in the world, gets intercepted sometimes. And if you were to talk to him and say, well, why did you throw it there? And he goes, because I didn't see the linebacker, out of the corner of my eye quickly enough to realize that he was going to make it to cut off the pass that I was throwing to one of my receivers. Right? So in split second moments, like when you're a quarterback or when you're in the middle of a potentially fatal interaction with someone you do not know, the courts, and David, I'm just telling you just to be prepared, the courts, or at least one of 12 jurors in a jury, are going to be enormously understanding and give the benefit of the doubt to a police officer who makes a reasonable case that they were feeling threatened. Now, we don't know what Kim Potter is going to say. We don't know what happened in those split seconds when the Dante Wright was cuffed, or they were trying to cuff him and he was going back in the car. We don't know what they saw or heard fully. That video, you saw the video, it was very kind of rushed, right? And then it was frozen at the end, and we didn't get to see what happened afterwards. That may have further explained it. So that's all. I just want to have us have realistic expectations here. Anything else you want to say, Casey, on that?
No, outside of I just want your opinion really quick about what do you think about the police chief resigning? Like, what's the play with that? Is it just because they were calling for her and him to resign?
I think in this, that would never have happened a long time ago, or even, a few years ago. I think it's this sense of essentially bowing down to the emotion and the feelings of the community. And because there is some indirect relationship between having someone who's been on the force for 26 years being so improperly prepared, so ill-trained, and that people could be thinking, I know nothing about the police chief. I don't know how long the police chief has been on the job or how great a person he or she is or whatever. But I think it's that abundance of caution saying, you know what, I'm just gonna resign. Let's try to de-escalate the situation, right? And so that's why now some people have been saying that Kim Potter is being unfairly, victimized because, a woman is forced out within 24 hours. What if she were a white man? I don't think it's because of that. I think it was a smart decision given the high intensity of emotion that is already going on in that city, right? And you can feel it. You're living there.
Yeah.
So any other comments? David, I was talking to you, bro. Any comments on what I just said? So anyway, let's talk about Johnson & Johnson. So I have to confess something. I was very proud of myself, right? I had fought with the decision back and forth. And so today is Wednesday. Monday night, before I went to bed, I just said, well, let's see if there are any Johnson & Johnson appointments available, right? And sure enough, at CVS in Los Angeles, there were tons of appointments. When do you want it? We're here for you. When do you, boom, boom, all these appointments. And I go, okay, let me see if I can actually book one. And so I booked one on Monday night for Thursday so that I would have an opportunity to go get an antibody test, because it's my belief that if you have raging antibodies, let's say you were asymptomatic, you got COVID, you didn't know about it, you got lots of antibodies, you then take a vaccine, I think it is more likely you're going to have a bad reaction, right? That's something that my holistic MD had a very bad reaction from Johnson & Johnson because for that reason, right? And which is why in Europe, they tell people, if you've had COVID within the last 6 months, do not get a vaccination. Your antibody level is already high enough. You don't need it. Let's give the vaccines to somebody else. And also, you may in fact spur a negative reaction. Anyway, so I go to bed. I go, okay, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to do it, but at least I went to bed happy, thinking, okay, I put my big boy pants on, and I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to do this thing. And then I wake up and it's like, your appointment at CVS has just been canceled. It's like, what? After a year of debating this whole frickin' thing, it's like, oh. I'm going, wow, okay, is that the universe saying, I made the wrong decision for myself? Anyway, so the question is, what's going to happen? First of all, I have a conspiracy theory thought about this. Could it be that they're letting some air out of the balloon so the balloon will not pop? Because all these people, this vaccine hesitancy, and there's all these people like my doctor who was hesitant, and then she goes, no, the J&J, that's the good one. Then she got really sick for a week. But we're not hearing about her. We're not hearing about the people that my friends, my anti-vax friends, are saying are dying left and right from these vaccines. I don't know if that's true, but I think what a brilliant public relations plan. If in fact they're trying to do a public relations plan and not be honest and transparent, to go, we're going to pick one thing that only affects women, first of all, because men tend to be more hesitant, especially Trumpian men. And we're going to pick something where only 6 people, we're going to say, we're being completely transparent. We're doing the right thing. Aren't we great? We're stopping everything because of 6 people out of 7 million. Yay, us. You see, all you anti-vaxxers, we're being transparent. We care about the safety and efficacy, right? But in the back of their minds, they already know that there are 47,000 other problems that are not being talked about, right? That's just one possibility. And what triggers that is I heard several people, including Fauci, when he said, isn't this going to cause people to be more hesitant? And he goes, no, I think it's going to cause them to be less, because they're realizing how incredibly careful we're being, where even 6 out of 7 million is so important to us. And we're going to stop everything because of 6 out of 7 million. I do not trust them completely. I have to say that honestly. And neither do you, Casey Evans, because tell the story about what you and your wife decided, because these things might in fact not be as safe as some people want them to be.
Yeah, and real quick, that background story. We had Dustin on a couple days ago, and his wife gave birth in October, so he had a COVID baby, right? And our youngest was born in September. And real quick, when my wife went in, she got the protocol COVID test and felt fine, and it came back positive. And for her, it was honestly it was a mind fuck, because she felt fine. We've been socially distancing. We've been locked up in our home for months. She's pregnant. We haven't been out anywhere. So the fact that she had COVID was a shock, and she didn't have any symptoms. Flip side of that, we got the best care we could have ever gotten, more attention than we ever gotten. We were just kind of scared of was there a lot of babies that were born with COVID? What does that mean? For us, when we went home, we had to wear masks 24/7 for 14 days. When my wife breastfed, she had to wipe everything down. I mean, it was just uncomfortable, right? And the biggest thing from that is my wife had to take shots in her stomach twice a day for 60 days because of blood clots. And what was weird is we had a moment from that, even though she didn't have any symptoms of just, when a COVID vaccine does come out, is it going to be rushed? Will there be a lot of data behind it? Who knows? We'll trust the science. My wife had the idea, she took Moderna. She's like, Casey, what if, God forbid, something happened years down the road, they figure out that this thing gives you seizures when you're 60? I'm making this up, right? We have 4 kids. I think you should take a different vaccine. And like usual, your wife is usually right, and women are a lot smarter than men. But I went so far as I took it, I absorbed it, and I didn't think too much from it. But when I went to sign up for my test, I got to a screen, and Richard, you might have had this too, where I got to go through if I was allergic to anything in each of the vaccines. And for Moderna, I just clicked the yes thing and made it up that I was allergic to something in it, which then it took me to another screen where I could go and get the
Did
JJ
you lie?
right
You lied to the authorities to save your family?
I did.
What a horrible human you are.
But what's weird is again, it's just I'm just blind faith of my wife took one, I took another. God forbid if something happens, who the heck knows? But I took mine last Friday, and what was funny is when I took my shot, thousands and thousands of people are going in and out of the Minneapolis Convention Center every day, and I happened to get a shot from one of my oldest friends who I traveled Europe with 20 years ago. And we were laughing because I'm like, God, whoever would have thought, 20 years later, you'd be giving me a vaccine in a worldwide pandemic. But yeah, it's wild,
very
man.
Cool. And you're okay?
2 days later, yeah, I'm fine. Saturday, I felt off. I felt achy. My stomach felt weird, felt tired. Sunday came along and I felt just fine. And then Monday came out when I heard the news of the 6 people out of whatever were having some side effects. But again, it just kind of stressed the story of what my wife and I talked about a couple weeks back. So
it's a little bit like the vice president and the president are never in the same place at the same time. They're taking different flights. That kind of thing is, right? You didn't know that? That's a good move. By the way, so one other comment. So we've got one of our people, Hope Anderson. I had the J&J vaccine on April 1. My first day of eligibility was painless, and I had no side effects aside from a little soreness at the injection site the following day. Yay, Hope. Listen, I think these vaccines are probably really, really, really good and safe and effective. And nothing is 100%. And that's the tricky thing. And the question is the stuff that's not 100%, Is it going to mildly hurt you, or is it going to badly hurt you or kill you? Lori Love says, I used to hang out in Brooklyn Center as a kid. I was raised in the suburb next door. Why? How is it all these people have chosen in their lives to live in a place that is so frickin' cold? I don't understand it. Why would anyone, even including Prince, why would anyone want to live in Minnesota? Okay, and Al Franken. The entire area was so white that I never saw a black person in person until I went away to college, talking about Brooklyn Center in the 60s. Anyway, okay, long story. Thank you. I'll read that later. We can talk about it, perhaps. I just want to say a few more things because we're getting close to the end of the show here. And so I want to give kudos to Rachel Maddow. And I actually wrote a note. You know Peter Hotez? He's one of those, he's got this bow tie. He's this epidemiologist who is a big, or a virologist. He's this big, the only thing that exists in the world. I mean, don't drink water, don't breathe oxygen, don't exercise, don't sleep, just take vaccines kind of guy. And it pisses me off. And Fauci's that way too. I don't get it. I don't get it. It takes Jennifer frickin' Garner to get Tony Fauci to talk about taking vitamin D, okay, and taking vitamin C. No one else. Well, there was like one other report that came out where he mentioned something about vitamin D. Out of a year or a year plus of talking about wear a mask, socially distance, wash your hands, and then get a vaccine. It's like what I told Peter Hotez in my email was the reason that he's always complaining about vaccine hesitancy. And I said, Peter, I don't know him well, but we were part of a group together and I had his information. I'm sure he's upset that I even have his information because he did respond to me a couple times, but not any longer because I think he's pissed off at me because I am holding up a standard of care that I believe he and other doctors are not abiding by. I think, honestly, Dr. Fauci and so many other medical doctors who you see on TV are guilty of medical malpractice. And that Jennifer Garner, an actress, and Rachel Maddow, a news person, a journalist, are the only ones that are really talking about alternatives, that it is not a black or white universe. It's not like you take a vaccine and you wear a mask or you do nothing. No, take your vaccine if you feel like it, wear a mask for sure, just out of basic frickin' common human courtesy. And there are other options. Rachel Maddow has been talking, if you've been watching her, pretty nonstop about the therapeutic options. Monoclonal antibodies for people who can't yet get a vaccine, or for those people who do not want to take a vaccine. We now have lots and lots of availability for monoclonal antibodies. Also, there is unbelievable, powerful, positive clinical studies showing that ivermectin, a very cheap drug that's been used for decades, often with animals, but nonetheless also with humans, is incredibly effective as a therapeutic. Also, the truth is, and I hate to say this because Donald Trump said the same thing, but a stopped clock is correct twice a day. Hydroxychloroquine, if taken early with zinc, is incredibly effective at reducing serious cases and death. And sorry to keep going on and on about this, vitamin D, which is also an antithrombotic, meaning it prevents blood clots. So if you do not have sufficient levels of vitamin D in your blood and you're concerned because you took the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and you're a woman, you might want to make sure your vitamin D levels are not deficient or insufficient. Vitamin D has been incredibly proven over and over and over and over again to reduce contracting COVID, to reduce bad cases of COVID, and to reduce death from COVID, right? Why are we not talking about this? And that, people say, why are you hesitant to take the vaccines? That's the number one reason. I don't frickin' trust a medical establishment, a medical system, doctors who are telling me how great vaccines are, how safe vaccines are, and they may be great. They may be safe. It may be modern frickin' miracles of medicine. I do not exclude that possibility. But if I can't frickin' trust you to be transparent and honest, and if the public can't trust you to be transparent and honest because you are not talking about the things that we know that also will help end this pandemic and keep people safe, right? Like monoclonal antibodies, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, vitamin D, and things that are completely frickin' non-controversial for decades and decades, if not hundreds of years, which is do basic things to be healthy. Exercise. Is there one medical doctor in the country that is going to say, oh, no, don't exercise? No, you don't want to get your 6,000 steps in. You don't even want 1,000 steps. Stay in your bed and watch Netflix. No. There was a doctor that my dad had who said something I'll never forget. He goes, the human body was literally just designed to move. If you do not move the way your body is designed to work, the actual engineering of your body, so, the lymph and the blood flow and all of the things that you need to make it work properly cannot happen, which is why if you go to a hospital, they have you walking up and down the corridors, even with a cane in your robe, because we are supposed to move. When has Dr. Fauci or any of these people, including Peter Hotez, said, oh, by the way, get your vaccine, wear your mask, but oh, by the way, you might want to do a little bit of exercise like Dr. Fauci does, right? So we're not talking about that. That causes me to doubt the transparency, the honesty, and actually buy into this conspiracy theory that I don't fully embrace, that the pharmaceutical lobby, the pharmaceutical companies, big pharma is in fact doing bad things. Just be balanced. Just come on. Exercise. It's good for you, regardless of COVID. It's good for your immune system, regardless of COVID. There are other things your immune system has to deal with other than COVID that exercise will help. Also, drink lots of water. When have we heard that? Not just Coca-Cola or Diet Coke like you, Donald Trump, although you do whatever you want, man. I'm so happy not to have to worry about you anymore. And eat good things. Eat lots of fresh fruits and vegetables. We've known that for a long time. Your own grandmothers and mothers have been telling you that, and yet doctors won't say that in the middle of the biggest health crisis we've had. What the you know what I'm going to say, right? Also, stop eating lousy food. Obesity is a huge comorbidity. 78% of people who have bad results from COVID are obese or overweight. Maybe don't drink 3 Coca-Colas or fruit juices or eat pasta and bread all day long. Maybe eat some actual vegetables and fruits, although not too many fruits, because that will make you fat as well. Certainly fruit juice will. Have low glycemic fruits like blueberries. Oh my God, blueberries, like the perfect food. Strawberries, right? Eat lots of omega-3 fats, because that's going to help you with your heart issues, and that's going to help you neurologically, because your brain is made of 70% fat. Okay. And then take the micronutrients that we know are helpful and to actually be a part of your innate immune system, and particularly vitamin D. Okay, so there's my rant. So am I gonna now, it's like the universe says, okay, you can't take the Johnson & Johnson for a while. Am I gonna go back on there and do it? I don't know, probably, but it's almost like this pause was for a purpose. And let's see, oh, we got some comments here. Yes, Hope, thank you. Hope Anderson says, I wish doctors would talk about the importance of good nutrition. Jesus. Well, and it's not an excuse. It's not an excuse that they're not trained in nutrition. I'm a lawyer. I know more about nutrition than they do. They actually could go on Google and they could learn about it. They don't have to have learned about it in medical school. I wish doctors would talk about the importance of good nutrition and daily exercise. I'm tired of hearing that these measures are out of reach for most people. I so agree with you. As if choosing vegetarian instead of processed foods, for goodness sakes. Glyphosate. Do you know how bad glyphosate is? Monsanto is truly, talk about people who should be in jail. Every single executive at Monsanto who has prioritized and put out and pushed and cheated and lied and stolen and filed lawsuits to promote their Roundup should be in jail. Okay, choosing vegetarian instead of processed, but taking a walk instead of sitting around are impossible. Okay, I agree with you. Thank you, Hope. Patty, I'm waiting for full approval of FDA before I get my vaccine. I don't know what that means. Currently, it is approved for, oh, I see what you're saying. It's emergency use. Pfizer is applying for the full FDA approval this month. Thank you, Paul. Brussels sprouts. And hold on here. Can I just say this is, remember every week here on Redefining, like Redefining Nutrition, Redefining Health, every week on Redefining with Richard Greene, we talk about the fruit or vegetable of the week that I'd like you to have a new definition about, have a new relationship with. The first week was Brussels sprouts. The second week was Napa cabbage. The third week was beets. Beets. My dog Nikki loves all three of those. I do not give Nikki this, and that is but Casey. So Nikki may not like this, but Casey Evans does, right, Casey?
Hell yes, I do. I drink one of those a day. They should become sponsors of the show, Richard.
I know. I'm going to reach out to them. Tell people what this is, so they're not. So I can stop with my rant, and people who might be tired of my rant voice, they can calm down a little bit.
No, it's just 0-calorie soda. But what's fascinating about it, Richard actually poured that out into a glass. It's cola, but it's clear, which is mind blowing, by the way. And then, but it tastes great. I mean, it doesn't have the caffeine in it. You don't feel like you're missing anything. It's just good stuff.
So here what it says, total sugars. I know it's backwards, but total sugars, look how many it says.
It's a big zero.
It's a big zero. Zero! And it tastes as sweet as Coke. Zero sugar. You know why? Do you know why it tastes sweet and has zero sugar? And sugar is what makes you fat. Fat doesn't make you fat. Sugar makes you fat. Why does it have zero sugar? Let's see if you know. It's not diet. It's not like Diet Coke. It doesn't have aspartame. It doesn't have all those other fake things. What does it have? Oh, Casey, come on, man.
I have no clue. You stumped me, Richard.
Oh, I did fix it now. So hello.
Okay, somebody wants to answer. Does Mrs. Casey know the answer?
She doesn't, but she's a big fan of it as well.
Okay, it has stevia. Do you know what stevia is? Did I lose you?
No, I'm still here. No clue.
Does anyone know what stevia is? That's why I felt comfortable putting it in the fruit or vegetable of the week. Stevia is a plant. I've actually grown some. It's unbelievable. It's so fun to grow because it's like picking candy. Take a little leaf off of it. It's like a weed. It's like mint. And you take a leaf off of it and you chew it and it's super sweet. It's a sweet plant. So this is plant food. This is not sugar. Well, actually, sugar is plant food as well, but stevia is a zero sugar, zero carb, 0-calorie sweetener that is 100% natural.
And get them to sponsor the show.
Yeah, no, I know. The more I'm talking about, it's like they're getting all this free frickin' advertising. You know what? Let's do that. I will reach out to them. I'll send them this segment.
Good.
And we have an endorsement from all the way from Minneapolis that you are taking time, Casey Evans, in the middle of fearing for your life with the hordes of protesters legitimately protesting some pretty screwed up things there to endorse their product. I think they're based out here in Southern California. Let's see, Hope, thank you for your rant. Kathleen, you're welcome, Kathleen. I mean, I know you feel the same way. Hope, vegetables. People say, well, why are you a vegetarian? Do you hate meat? You know, when I was a kid, I would eat meat. It was never my favorite thing, but I would eat it. And then when I became a vegetarian and you change your palate, you realize how unbelievably delicious fruits and vegetables are, right? And it's like you don't miss meat because, right, they're so yummy. They're so yummy. Okay, thank you, Paul. Don't Beyond Beef Burger, which, okay, Kathleen is saying don't. We have this Beyond Meat, right? And we have Impossible Burger. Those are treats. They're not that healthy for you, but I'm happy that you're not killing animals and contributing to climate change, right? So plant-based hamburgers are better, but fruits and vegetables, yes, monk fruit is also yummy. Stevia, yes, a plant. Zevia, oh, look, Zevia people, we have another endorsement, right?
And then they do make it for kids, by the way. I mean, the kid flavors are almost as good as the normal ones.
But what's to be afraid of? It's water and stevia. I mean, there's nothing here. Yeah, there's a few little natural flavors. There is caffeine in this one, but they have a non-caffeinated one as well.
I would bathe in it. I love it so much.
Okay, we're definitely getting the advertising now. Zevia is awesome. This is from Mary Alice. They have it for kids too, right? That's what you said. I buy it for grandkids instead of soda. Yeah, you don't even have to let them know. Here we have a special tasting Coke, right? And they don't even have to know. Okay, Beyond Beef, a good question. I want to know if Beyond Burgers are soy. Beyond Burgers are not soy-based. They are gluten-based. They're gluten, as far as I understand. No, they're pea. They're pea protein, basically. Pea protein, which is, I think, the best. Hope, I'm an omnivore and I eat more vegetables than most vegetarians. Yay. I don't know if you eat more than me or more than Nikki, by the way, Hope. Okay, we got to go. Beverly, we have another endorsement. Beverly Thompson. Beverly, where are you from? Okay. I love Zevia. There you go. Guys, okay, I'm calling you.
Tomorrow we're talking nothing but Zevia tomorrow.
What do you mean? Oh, that's the whole show?
The whole show is Zevia. We have it covered.
Well, you know what I can do? Here's what I can do. Why don't I invite their corporate communication person to come on and talk about the horrors of drinking sugary drinks.
Yeah,
and
there you go.
That's what I'll try to book it. Okay, Casey, stay safe. Casey, if you didn't hear, lives like down the street from the officer who just got arrested, got charged with second-degree manslaughter. I do believe she will get off, but stay safe out there. Hopefully Monday is going to be the closing arguments. We could have either World War III in the United States in the streets across the country. If there is a not guilty verdict, if there's an acquittal, I do not believe that's going to happen on all three counts. Or we could breathe a sigh of relief as Derek Chauvin at least is held responsible for what was incredible. Okay, incredibly horrible thing. Casey, stay well. I'm glad you and your wife were vaccinated. I'm glad you're doing okay. Love you, brother, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, bud. Thanks, Richard.
Take care.